a special guest today talking to you about seduction learning styles, which is very exciting. So let me introduce Marla. Marla is a certified sexologist, author, and sexual strategist who runs her own sexuality education company, Velvet Lips. She is also a co-founder of the top-rated Sex Down South conference. She has studied human sexuality for more than 22 years and has given over 600 workshops all over the world. She's been featured on a variety of media outlets, including Netflix's Trigger Warning with Killer Mike and Love and Hip Hop Atlanta. She co-wrote her first book, The Ultimate Guide to Seduction and Foreplay, with Dr. Jessica O'Reilly, which debuted in April 2020. So welcome, Marla Renee Stewart. Very excited to have you here.
Hey, Heather. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, I mentioned this before we hit record, but I didn't realize that you've been doing this for 22 years.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yes, I've been doing this a long ass time. Mm-hmm.
What made you passionate about this area? How did you get into it?
I think there's a couple parts to it. One is, I would say my mom did some sex positive parenting without realizing she was doing sex positive parenting.
That's amazing.
She was just didn't want me to become a teenage, teenage parent like she was.
Mm-hmm.
And so she really educated me on everything from like, if you get horny, this is what you do. This is what UTI feels like. This is what BV is. This is, like all the things.
Wow.
And even when I came out.
It's always so interesting to hear like backgrounds of people who go into this field, and it's really all over the place.
It is. It is. Yeah. And And then when I came out, she was just like, oh my God. She's like, I don't know, what they do. But she like handed me a lesbian sex pamphlet and was like, here, protect yourself, So it was out of, I'm sure out of fear, but out of love, and respect. So I think that was part of it. And then when I got into college, I was the go-to person around sex, relationships, communication, all of those things. So I was like, oh, this needs to be my job. Like, this is my job.
Do you think it's just because you were more comfortable than like the other college students?
Absolutely. Okay. And I was studying it. So I was studying human sexuality, LGBT studies.
Oh, cool.
So I think it was all of that. Mm-hmm.
Like because it's interesting, as much as I'll sometimes be like, my parents didn't say much to me, or whatever. I don't know that I would have wanted them to. I think I was probably so deeply uncomfortable. Like, were you uncomfortable when your mom was telling you these
things? Oh my God, I was so embarrassed.
Okay.
Are you kidding me? So embarrassed. So embarrassed. It was like, my mom was like, when you're ready to have sex, that means you go to the store and you buy condoms. Like, that's when you're ready to have sex. And I was like, okay, and so that, of course, that conversation's uncomfortable. And then, of course, the lesbian sex pamphlet thing was also uncomfortable.
Oh my God.
Everything was uncomfortable. I was just like, Mom, leave me alone, It was very awkward, but I'm very thankful, and when I got to college, I realized like how thankful I was. And, my mom and I, we kind of butted heads, a little bit while I was a teenager, but, for the most part, I'm so glad that she was able to come through for me and be a supportive parent like she is.
That's awesome. Is she like so proud of you now for doing this work?
Oh yeah, absolutely. My mom comes with me everywhere. Like when I'm traveling, she comes with me to take care of my child. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my God, I love her.
Yeah.
She sounds like a very good mom. That's awesome. Okay, so you mentioned, again, before we hit record, that the seduction learning styles is something you've developed quite a while ago. How did you even develop this? Like, did patterns just start becoming clear to you?
Yes. Yeah, it's sort of like the Matrix, I was reading The Art of Seduction by Robert Greene, and I was studying like, okay, how do I like navigate putting this all together and helping people with their sex lives. And
Mm-hmm.
when I was reading this book and then I was thinking about the learning styles, I was like, holy shit, this is it. This is how people get seduced. This is how they connect with other people. And I was like, this is the foundation. And so what I realized, everybody that I talk to, I'm immediately able to sort of peg them as auditory or visual or tactile. And I'm able to connect with them better because people are like, wow, Marla, you make so many connections. You're friends with everybody. You're able to do all these things. And I'm like, it's because I know how to talk to them. I know how to connect with them. Because of what I formulated, right?
Cool.
Like I said, it was sort of like, I basically kind of put these two concepts together and came up with the seduction learning styles. And it's helped so many people. And it just really helps people to understand not only who they are as a person and understanding themselves, but how to connect with other people that feels genuine, not, gaslighting or not whatever the pickup artist, type shit. Like it is genuine human connection. And so that's what makes it, I believe, very valuable. So, so that's the foundation.
Like learning styles from like school almost and like mixing it with sex ed.
Yes.
Oh, that's so interesting. So, okay, what are yours? And can we figure out mine?
Yeah, absolutely. I probably know yours already. So mine is I'm very visual and very tactile.
Okay.
And there's not necessarily like you are one and only one, but you sometimes are usually the majority of one or maybe two. Some people are like, I'm turned on by all the things, right? So that they have, all three. But my guess is that you are probably a little bit visual and more auditory.
Okay. So what are the options?
Visual, auditory, tactile.
Okay. Can I be all
3 options? Yeah. Take the quiz. You might be.
Oh, there's a quiz. Everyone's going to love that. Okay. Well, yeah, the quiz in the show notes, everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. velvetlipsexed.com/quiz. That's the quiz is there for you to find out what your learning style is.
Okay. That's so fun. So what makes you think that I'm auditory and visual?
Well, visual people tend to, so what the hack is, right? That visual people tend to have a lot of adornment on their faces or a lot of things happening. And so the mind, right? The jewelry, the lashes, all the things. And different colored hair tend to be, visual.
That
but
makes sense.
Yeah, usually I say people with funky glasses usually are visual people. Jewelry, you have like big jewelry, you have like big hoops on. Yeah. Those tend to be pretty good indicators that someone is visual because they're seeing themselves in the mirror and they're like, oh, I got to add the pizzazz.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I used to have purple hair, but then it all fell out.
Oh, we'll see.
I'm okay now. I grew my hair back, but now I'm too afraid to dye it again.
Maybe not that. You need to get the topical one, not the
that's
the chemicals.
Idea. Yeah. Okay.
So visual,
so
and then
cues. Okay.
Yeah, those are not the visual hacks for around people, and then the auditory hacks are generally like you ask somebody a question, and they give you like a really drawn out answer. So, for instance, you could be like, how was your day? And you'd be like, well, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed and then I had to do this and then I had to do that. And then I went in the shower and then the water was cold. Like they have like stories, you know what I mean?
That's me, definitely. I also think that's ADHD, but I also think ADHD people, like all the podcasters I know, or maybe not all, but like half have ADHD.
Wow. Interesting.
It's a high number. And like entrepreneurs in general, like very high percentage.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Entrepreneurs, yes, in general, that's a hardcore fact. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I wonder if there's a correlation.
And you know what, the reason why is because there's so many different things to do and you can put your attention towards several different places. Okay. So yeah, it's a really, I believe people who have ADHD should definitely be more entrepreneurial than working for someone, in my opinion. So
I agree. I'm ruined. I don't think I'm capable of working for others at this point.
You're ruined.
It's just like not even possible anymore.
Right.
Yeah. But okay, so so the auditory, you can kind of tell, like if someone's chatty, if they're kind of like digressing.
Yeah, they like to hear themselves talk. They love to hear themselves speak and talk.
Yeah.
And so they tend to go like, oh, I love a good conversation. But it's really like, I love to hear myself talk is really like the underlying subconscious of it all.
Yeah, guilty. Okay, all right. So that makes sense. And then what about the tactile one?
Tactile, these are people, like the hack around these people are generally like they love to touch everything. So like taking them to a store and seeing how they move. So if they go and touch everything on the shelf, like generally those are tactile people. They like to, they love to touch. These are like athletes, dancers, people who love to move their body, typically are more tactile.
That makes a ton of sense. And I've also found that people like that are pretty sexual in general.
Yeah, they love to touch, right? They love touching.
Dancers,
I mean, I
feel like
yeah. I mean, everybody can be sexual. I think it's just how they're sexual. Yeah. So I think when people, I think people thinking about tactile because they love to touch, they're kind of, they're like, people read their cues more blatantly, I guess you could say.
I love that you're giving us all these hacks too. So now like everyone listening can go like figure out the people in their lives.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why I was like, oh, this is how I connect to people. This is how I'm able to connect with people easily, is because I've been able to tap into all of these different ways of doing that.
Okay, that makes sense. All right. So then what does it mean? So now that we kind of know our styles or partner styles, what does it mean for our sex lives?
What it means is that you're able to relay that to your lover, right? So for instance, Heather, if you're my lover and I'm like, okay, you are visual for sure, or there's other aspects of you that are visual, I'm going to be like, well, I'm going to do what I'm going to do to use my sexual assets to ensure that you are attracted to me. So maybe it's what I wear, right? What I put on or what I take off, right? Maybe it is how I put on my face or my jewelry, or maybe it's, it can also be the way that I describe a story to you, right? So it could be visual people love to daydream, right? So they need to see a story.
Yeah.
So how I'm connecting with you that way. It may be eye contact, because that's number one with visual people. So maintaining that eye contact, having that be steady, that's huge. How you move. So if it's a busy room, making sure that you're moving very slowly or just staying still, right? Because that gets the attention of a visual person because it's the opposite of the room. So there's those kinds of things that are helpful for visual people. And then if you were like, okay, well, I'm also auditory, I could be like, talk to you in low, soft, deep tones, make you wait on every single word that I'm going to say, right? Like,
great.
Vocabulary, fluctuations and, intonation and the way you speech pattern, vocabulary. People who are auditory love different kinds of words, multi-syllable words, words that you normally don't hear in, the everyday language. So you might up your game on your vocabulary.
That's interesting. So there's like a little overlap with, like sapiosexual.
Oh yeah. For sure. Yeah. Dirty talk that they want to hear. Right. Absolutely. Like thinking about the kind of dirty talk. But dirty talk, moans, breathy tones, music they want to hear. Absolutely. Those are super, super. But the most important thing, I think, for auditory people are the questions and feedback. So if an auditory person says, oh, I walked my dog yesterday, the next thing out of your mouth should be, oh, what kind of dog do you have? What's the name of your dog? Was it a long walk, a short walk? Tell me more about your walk. Did you meet it? Really engaging and having that active listen? Any other dogs on the walk? Listening is really, really huge for auditory people.
Yeah. That makes some sense. And also that's just a good skill set to have, is to be like really present with what someone's telling you and like the active listening and everything. Okay, that's awesome. Okay, so we did visual, we did auditory, and now tactile. So if you have a tactile partner.
Yeah, if you have a tactile partner, well, what you need to do is make sure that you are rubbing up against them, right? So that you are using your body, your hands, whatever you have to rub up against them, or have, use their hands or body to rub up against you. I also encourage people to variation in clothing. A lot of times we just wear cotton. Okay. So using different kind of materials, so whether that's lace, latex, I don't know, rubber, leather, seersucker, velvet, whatever, like try different kinds of material so that they want to reach out and touch you. I like really cozy. Yes. Yes. So all of those things are tactile, and then dancing. So anything that, doing some dancing, generally tactile people really love to dance, move their bodies. Like I said, a lot of times these people are athletes, they're dancers. They love to utilize their bodies in various ways. They might be fitness people, like lots of fitness people tend to be tactile. But what else? So I said material, I said movement, getting them just to be active on certain things. So that's huge for tactile people.
Now, like if you and your partner have different styles, is that a challenge or not necessarily?
Depends on what they are, right? So the only actually real challenge is if both of you are auditory. So if both of you are auditory, it's a challenge because you both want to talk. You both love hearing yourself talk. So a conversation is like, it's like double dutch. You're like, you're trying to get into the conversation. So that's really the most challenging, again, is if both people are auditory, but one person visual, one person mostly auditory, you're fine. I think every other combination is good, but really it's about, really it's about, what do you call, like, catering to your lover's learning style.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, I can see as an auditory person and also the ADHD again, but where I sometimes interrupt or I jump in, and sometimes my dad will reflect this to me, and then I'm like, okay, I just need to be a little more conscious of it. But I actually really like them.
Yeah, you do. I'm sure.
I do.
Yeah, they remind you of yourself.
It's like, maybe I like people who are like expressive, and I'm kind of like, okay, they're like meeting me halfway. It's not like just me pouring into like the relationship or like the space. So
I think that is a learned skill for auditory people. What I've noticed too is that like somebody will be like, I scored high on auditory, but I love listening to people. And I'm like, but did you do that as a kid? When you were a kid, were you told to shut the fuck up? And usually they are like, yeah. And I'm like, you just learned to shut the fuck up. You didn't, that skill, that thing is still in you. You just learned the extra skill to shut the fuck up. So, yeah. But it's true. It's like what we are as kids is generally, who we are as adults, but we've learned the skills to accommodate other people rather than engaging authentically in who we are.
That makes a lot of sense. This is such an interesting model to play with. And, I've thought about doing a workshop for people on like create your own sex manual. And I can see how this would really come in handy, for people to like take the quiz. And it's just a whole other way to know yourself. is a sexual.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And and I love the fact that like when Jess and I wrote the book, like I feel like our models go hand in hand because hers of the core erotic feeling of like who you are at your core. If that person can like cater to who your core is, like it'll be amazing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. And I think so much of what we want in relationships is to feel like, seen, heard, and understood. And it sounds like this model is helping people do or receive exactly that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. Okay. And then does this also get into like sexual acts like in the bedroom, or do you find that it comes into play more so in like, foreplay or flirting, kind of leading up to the bedroom?
Both, absolutely. And so, yeah, when we talk about it in the book, we talk about the practical strategies on the ways to use those, because not only do you want to plant sex seeds as the foreplay and the seduction, right? But you also want to be practical. So, for instance, if you are going down on someone and someone is visual, what are the ways that you are connecting with them? Maybe you're making eye contact with them. Maybe if they're tactile, so maybe you need to be using your hands all around their body while you're, maybe you're grabbing them using tactile. I forgot to say pressure, using pressure. The tips of your fingers, all those things. Though you can integrate those ways of being into your sexual experiences. So. Yeah, if someone's auditory, right? The moans and breathy tones, right? You're just like, the guttural sounds that you make in orgasm, like all of those things are going to be helpful.
Right. Or like slurping sounds.
Yeah, people love those slurping sounds. Yeah.
They really do love slurping sounds. That's pro tip. If you're like, how do I take my blowjob to the next level? Just add a little slurp.
The hawk chua girl,
Yeah, with eye contact. I mean, what if you combine all of them?
Then exactly. Then you are a pro. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's why a lot of sex workers, have been successful in what they do, because they're able to navigate all of those different things at the same time.
And just understanding people. I think just like being able to read people and understand them, huge. That's so cool. So once people master this, like, how do you feel like this changes things for them? Like, I mean, I'm sure you've worked with a lot of people who've kind of gone through this process with you. Like what happens on the other side?
It is a game changer. So I had this couple, they were together 40 years, and the wife was like, he never listens to me. He never listens to me. Everything I say, he never listens to me. Whatever. He never listens to me. And then I said, well, you're probably shouting at him or something. I said, this is what I want you to do. I want you to go up to him. I want you to place your hand on his arm, look him in his eye, and say what you need to say. And she did that. And she was like, oh my God, he listened to me. And I was like, because he's probably tactile. And you have been shouting at him from 30 feet away or 5 feet away or 2 feet away without touching him and connecting to who he is. And
my God.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
It is an absolute game changer for
I'm
people.
stealing
You don't have to steal it. It's in the book. Get the book. You know what I mean? Just make sure you cite me. That's all I care about.
My friend Marla. That's great. I mean, it's like it sounds like such a small thing, but I think it really does come from like knowing someone, meeting them where they're at, and I think that's like a classic example you gave, because I don't really know anyone who likes being yelled at from like another floor of the house or like 3 rooms away of the house. And to just kind of realize like, oh my God, what if I could get like, double or triple the results just by taking a few extra seconds?
Exactly.
Like that. Yeah. And that's one thing, and not to like hate on men, but like one thing from working with men is I realized they try really hard. Like they're trying really hard to, if they're with a woman, to please a woman. And So I'm like, oh wow, I think they're trying harder than their partners realize sometimes. And what I realize is like, it's like, because not 100% of it is landing. You know, it's like sometimes I find them like trying very hard, but not in the ways that are going to get them the points that they're trying to get. So I think what you're saying really hits that home, and regardless of gender, really. But that it's like when you learn your person's style, then you get credit for 100% of your efforts.
Absolutely.
And like just for me, it's like I want to get credit for all my effort. I don't want to feel like half my effort is like
absolutely. So like I had an example. This guy, he was like, I need help. I said, okay. And so, you know, I'm like, these are the seduction learning styles. This is what you need to do. This is how you recognize it, right? He meets he sees a woman in a cafe, and she's reading a book that he loves, right? So he's like, oh my God, like, okay, like this is my opportunity, right? So, you know, he approaches her about the book. She starts going off about the book, right? She's really excited about the book. She starts talking, and then he interrupts her, starts talking about the book, and then basically shut her down, right? Because clearly she was excited about the book, and she probably was auditory, like, oh, you're asking me questions. So instead of recognizing that she was auditory and asking questions and giving feedback, he went into his whole like, oh, I like it too, and this is what I like about it, and this is how and made it about him. And he ruined his opportunity. You know what I mean? Like he completely ruined his opportunity to
but thank God.
I mean, but he was like, I don't know what I did wrong. I was like, I know exactly what you did wrong, you know? Like you gave her no space.
Yeah. That's another classic one. Like, I mean, I think so many people just really enjoy when someone shows curiosity about them in sort of like a dating situation. And I do think that the tendency sometimes can be like, I have to impress this person, or I have to like make sure I share all the like great things about myself. And it's like, they're coming from a good place with that, you know? It's just not going to get you the results that you want.
Right.
So I'm definitely about like helping people get the results that they actually want. So we've talked about this, I guess, more so in partnership, but I mean, you kind of just gave a great example for single people too. So how do you feel like this impacts like the dating experience, or like what would it affect? Like if I go on a dating app, would it affect what I look for in someone too?
Well, I think this is the hard part, because like the only way to really engage on dating apps is to tell someone if they're visual, right? You can't tell if someone's auditory or tactile via a dating app. And so that's sort of the disadvantageous part of dating apps. You know, and then there's also, you don't even know what someone smells like. You know what I mean? Like, you know,
it's true. That's
it's ginormous.
Even like with pheromones and hormones.
It's ginormous. So like, you know, I feel like if you're going to use dating apps, use them very temporarily and arrange meetings sooner than later. So I would just say, I used to, when I was on dating apps, I used to have this thing of like 7 messages max. Like if we can't get to meeting in person within 7 messages, like I'm not interested. Cause I am not, you know, people like to drone on and on and on and on. And I'm like, I am not that person. So so I think it's important to also have boundaries for yourself. And to understand who you are. Because if you are a person who likes to, I don't know, have 6-month-long conversations, I watch Catfish, and I'm just like, I can't. This is appalling that people are going years and years without meeting people. Like, this is just outrageous. Aww. And so, and it's like, I get it, because they're hanging on to something, but then it's like, you know, it hardly ever turns out successful. So I think, you know, when we're thinking about the seduction learning styles and trying to implement them in dating apps, if you're auditory, that means you need to get on the phone. That means you need to have a phone call. It means if you're visual, it means you need to have a video chat. If you're tactile, that's a hard one because, you can't really touch through the phone. But, I think it's just, I think it's just difficult to navigate that way.
Limitations. Yeah. It is. I mean, and it's interesting. I'm like definitely very auditory because I actually leave people audio memos.
Oh, nice.
Like, on
yes.
Bumble when I'm on there. Yeah. Which like most people are like, I didn't even know this was a feature of Bumble. I'm like, here I am, like the only person using the audios, but I do think it like adds more of it's like, oh, there's a real human on the other side. So,
yeah. I think that's huge for auditory. I think that's a really great, what I call plant the sex seeds. Really great sex seed is auditory. Yeah. Auditory, like one-liner stories. Like I had a couple that I just kind of like, he really loved like her voice. And so I like planned with her to make these like one-liner auditory stories, like descriptive stories. And they were really great. So it's sort of like, use what you got to get what you want. You know what I mean?
Right. It's like, it's fun hearing how you work with people because it just sounds like such a creative process, which is cool. Because I mean, I think creative energy and sexual energy are, one and the same.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Ways. I just gave a lecture to a bunch of almost sex therapists, and they were going through their sex therapy certification, and I was talking about a couple that I have where we had to integrate fan fiction, right? Like the wife was a huge like Wolverine rogue fan fiction fan, and was like, okay, how do we implement this into your sex life? And they did, and it's like glorious, Yeah. So Oh,
that's amazing. What a cool tool that you use with people. And the fact that, I mean, you said you've been using this for 15 years with people. So this is like very tried.
I want everybody to know about it. Like, I want this to be just as popular as everybody knows the freaking 5 love languages. Like, people need to know this, like this needs to be the basis of like emotional and like connection. You know what I mean? Like, fuck those love languages. Like, come on. Like, this is so much better. Like, I want everybody to know what this is. Like, how do I get on the news with this, I
mean, I think in our field, it is so challenging sometimes to get things out. Although I have found YouTube to be much better than Instagram. And podcasts are so fun because we don't get censored here. So, yeah. So, I mean, I love that. I'm happy you're able to join me and teach everyone about this stuff. But it's like, I think we sometimes need an army. It's like we have to all band together to like,
yes, absolutely.
So let's talk about parting words of wisdom for people. Like, what are the main takeaways you want people to have when it comes to this?
One of the main things I want people to take away, especially with regarding the seduction learning styles, is that we all have a way of connecting with one another. And just to make sure that you are, again, using what you got to get what you want. So using your sexual assets, knowing how you can connect, and really using those in a way that's advantageous for you and your lover or lovers. And so, and then with that, I also want to encourage people just to be curious and, try things at least 3 times. Try something at least 3 times. If it doesn't work out, then come back to it maybe 5 years later, 10 years later. Come back to it. Your body changes. You might change. You may have gone through some things. So I really, encourage people to try things at least 3 times, and if it still doesn't work out, come back to it. So those are like my parting words of wisdom.
I love that. And I mean, I think what you just said to me, it's like sexual assets is even like a really interesting concept, because I can see some people that I work with that are kind of like, what sexual assets? And like, I have no desire and I don't feel sexy at all. But I can see that like through this process, people might discover like, oh, it's not just like what my body looks like, because the visual part, maybe it's how you kind of like adorn your body, or, expressing yourself through style or fashion or hair or makeup or whatever it is. But it's also just like your energy, and it's also your verbal expression and your vocabulary, you know? And so I think when people are like, oh, well, I guess I do have some of those, you know? So I like that idea of people just feeling more confident.
Absolutely. And we can always find something about us that is positive. Like even something that's negative always has a positive, you know what I mean? So I think we also have to reformulate how we think about, you know, ourselves in general.
100%. That could be a whole other episode.
Right.
Yeah. Because I do think sometimes we're brought up obviously with these ideas about sex. I kind of think like we come into the world kind of a blank slate. We get programmed in all these ways. And then we have to, you know, listen to podcasts and educators and read books and do all the things to reprogram ourselves, how we actually want to be programmed in a way that serves us. And I think that is kind of what you're speaking to, you know, of like, let's reconceptualize how we even look at sexiness and sexual confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. We do need to look at it a little bit differently than we have in the past. And yeah. And this is the tool to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. And I'm so excited to share this with people. So thank you very much for coming on here. And if people are just like, oh my God, Marla's amazing, where can I connect with her more? Where can they
find you? You can find me at velvetlipssexed.com. And then on all social media at Velvet Lips Sex Ed, sex without the E.
And we'll link to those. So if people are like, what did she say? I can't remember. We will put those in the show notes as well. So thank you so much, Marla, for being here. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And we will catch you next week.